direction yet. Don't give up. I know you can make it good.
Though I saw it all around, never thought that I could be a faintant. Thought that we'd be last to go. It is so strange the way things turn. Drove the night toward my home, the place that I was born, on the lakeside. As daylight broke, I saw the earth.
Here we go. There's a little bit of a lag on my end, so I apologize. The song played a little longer than I wanted it to, but here we are. Welcome to our NAMI Marin County storytelling series. This is our storytelling event in honor of Suicide Prevention and Recovery Awareness Month, which is coming to an end at the end of this week. So September is the month for that. And we wanted to invite two of our really lovely storytellers who have been touched by suicide in different ways to share their experiences. So, and as you all know, the storytelling series features different individuals with lived experience in different topics of mental illness. And this one will be focused around suicide prevention, recovery, and postvention. And that song we were just playing is by Peter Gabriel, and it's called Don't Give Up. And we chose that song because it has a really lovely chorus with really empowering lyrics. And actually, Peter Gabriel himself shared on his website and in a few different interviews that one of the things over the years that sort of amazes him is how people use his songs after he's let them go into the world. And a number of people had written to him to say that they actually were having suicidal thoughts or tendencies, and that they had changed, they decided not to because they had that song on repeat. And it was actually like a hopeful message for them and a reminder not to give up. And we suspect that one of those people who he references is an American comic who he always liked his work, had said that, I think that song Don't Give Up saved my life, and I was suicidal and just kept playing it on repeat. And we suspect that that was probably Robin Williams, and we thought that was really just powerful and a local message to share. So with that, since we're talking about the local community, these events that we hold, these storytelling events, are a chance for us to bust stigma and build community. And so we feel like sharing our experiences and sharing our stories can help to shine a light to others, and also just to really get comfortable with sharing our different experiences and knowing that we all are touched by mental illness in different ways. And that sharing that with each other really does build a community of support. And that in these communities, we want to be intentional and create these environments of care. So we want to make sure that all of us today are showing up with compassion, non-judgment, respect, curiosity, and support. And in addition to that, I do have some caring reminders because of the topic today, just to remind us that mental health and suicidality are very personal and can be emotional topics to discuss. Many of us here are survivors who miss our friends, colleagues, relatives, and neighbors. Some of us may be attempt survivors or may be thinking about suicide. If you are thinking about suicide, please reach out. You shouldn't hold yourself responsible for something you didn't do, say in the past based on what you will learn today. And please refrain from using any pictures of the Golden Gate Bridge or anything like that for the Zoom background. And as always, stay connected. We're here. And if you are experiencing any suicidal thoughts or tendencies, just know that there's 988 is a crisis helpline that you can reach. And there's also a suicide prevention hotline in Marin that's local just to us, 415-499-1100. Or there's also a new text crisis line, 741-741, and that's just for Marin. And with all of that, I have one more reminder for all of us to just remember to be gentle with ourselves. These can be really vulnerable topics, really emotional topics. And if you are finding that you need to just take a break or a pause, we welcome you to do so. And the theme of tonight is actually to have hope. So in a moment, I'm going to be introducing our first storyteller. And he actually shared this message with us as part of his story, and he'll explain it a little further tonight during his story. But I just found it so inspiring that I thought, why not name this whole event after it? So just as a reminder for all of us to keep hope, that hope stands for hold on, pain ends or eases. And it's just such a lovely little concise reminder that things will get easier, and that sticking through it really is what we can do. So with that, I'm here to introduce Rick Hess. Rick Hess is our NAMI's newest board member, and he's a Silicon Valley executive and entrepreneur who's now committed to helping nonprofits further their missions. Rick has significant lived and family history of mental illness, and he is passionate about supporting NAMI's mission of providing help and hope to individuals and families experiencing mental health crises. Rick's story is a triumphant journey that broke through stigma and the barriers to effective care. His wish is that his story will provide a light to others that there is hope, and act as a reminder that recovery from serious mental illness is possible. And without further ado, Rick will present his story. Go ahead and stop sharing for a moment. Spotlight.
Thank you so much, Amanda, and thanks to all of you for showing up on a Monday late afternoon. You'd all rather be having a cocktail or appetizers, but I'm very touched that you're here, and especially some of my dear friends and family that I see have showed up. It means the world to me. This is not an easy presentation for me. I am used to speaking to people all over the world in front of large crowds. I'm finding myself more anxious about this than those presentations, because it's such a personal story. And as we all know, there is so much stigma around mental illness. And I still find myself feeling ashamed, feeling weak that I have a mental illness, feeling very embarrassed about some of my behavior during both of my two crises over the last few years. But that's what this is all about, to break through those stigmas and to help each other understand that there is hope to get through a mental crisis, and there is help. And I have to immediately give credit to where credit is due. I see that my dear cousin Sue Hess is on this call. Sue and I have known each other since I was born. We're going back a few years. I was born and raised in Pennsylvania, as was Sue. And Sue became a psychiatric nurse and had a very senior position at the University of Virginia Hospital for many years. And as I was getting very sick over 2 years ago, I reached out to Sue, and the help that she provided me helped save my life. I call her my guardian angel. And she sent me multiple cards as I was getting more and more sick, with H.O.P.E in bold letters as an acronym for hang on, pain ends. And I've added or eases. And while it may sound very simplistic, it may sound kind of trite, it actually was something that helped me get through my darkest moments when I made several attempts to end my life. So let me just tell you a little bit more about myself. I am a survivor of two major mental health crises. The first was major depression and anxiety that did lead to suicidation, suicide ideation, and an attempt. And then I moved into manic episode, which is not unheard of, not unusual after a major depression, for reasons that we still don't understand. The brain can have these swings, the brain can become irrational. And I ended up in a manic episode that also could have ended my life. But I got through it, and I got through it with tools that I'd like to share with you. Just a little bit more about me. I am a very lucky man. I was born and raised in a great family and community in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, for those of you who know that part of the world. My family's Mennonite, and it is a big part of who I am, a very warm, wonderful community, but also very religious and not always accepting of those of us that may not conform to the norms. I have always made friends easily. I've had some wonderful friends. I see one of my dear friends from high school is on this call, which means the world to me. I enjoyed a great education. I know I've got more white privilege around me than anybody should have. I fully recognize that. I ended up at the right place at the right time in Silicon Valley. I was hired by H.P.E out of college. They put me through a graduate program. I got recruited by Oracle in the mid 80s and helped build that company, which is today the second largest software company in the world. I have had several startups of my own, two in the for-profit world. In the nonprofit world, I helped a dear friend start a nonprofit that has been very successful. And I've had the luxury of retiring from a very demanding career at a young age. At 49, I was able to retire and start to give back. I have been very active in the nonprofit sector as a donor, as a board member. Occasionally, I've acted as acting executive when an organization has had the need. Here in Marin, I have ended up on the board of the Latino Film Festival, Buck Institute, which is quite well known here. It's about a $65 million a year nonprofit, helping people not just live longer, but live healthier longer. The Marin Museum of the American Indian, and recently, because of my new mission to help others in mental health crises get through those crises, particularly in the LGBTQ community, I have joined the NAMI Marin board. And NAMI, just so you know, is the nation's largest nonprofit focused on patients or peers of individuals dealing with mental health illness and family members. And in addition, I've joined the board of the SPAR Center recently, and that is Marin's AIDS Foundation, essentially, but now it's expanded to providing services to the LGBTQ community, support and help with folks that are dealing with HIV/AIDS. Beneath the surface of all this, however, I was dealing with the fact that I'm gay. Now, there is some controversy around whether it's a choice or not. I know for me, it wasn't a choice. And I know for a fact that I tried desperately to change myself, to be straight so that I could fit in with my family and with friends. Uh, and I'm going to share with you some of the trauma that I experienced. And I want to preface this with the fact that I believe life is full of trauma for all of us. And I don't see my trauma as any different than what my billionaire straight white neighbor here in the Ross Valley deals with. But we all have trauma, and it's all very personal. And I remember when I was 16 years old, I overheard my mother talking to her best friend, who was also a relative, and they said that they would rather have their child die than to be homosexual. And, just telling the story makes that anxiety rise, because I remembered thinking, wow, they would really see me dead. They would rather see me dead than to be who I am. So I figured out how to play the straight white guy. I have 3 older brothers who are kind of classic alpha males, 2 lawyers and one who spent his career in healthcare at one of the world's best hospitals, Columbia Presbyterian. And I hid who I was. But I would turn the corner and find bullying when I was in high school. It happens. It happens to all kids, I think. But particularly if you're sort of perceived weak as a male, you get a lot of bullying. When I was 19, I went to see a medical doctor at my college, and I was sexually molested. These things happen. I, of course, told nobody because it was so embarrassing. But these are some of the traumas that we all deal with in life. And for me, it was becoming increasingly a problem affecting my mental health. When I got into the workplace, I was told by any number of older, successful gay men and women that if I wanted to have a real job, which with an MBA, I expected, I was going to have to play straight. I was going to have to find a pretty woman to take to company events with me to play the game. And I was going to have to stay very much in the closet. And I figured out how to do that. But that kind of compartmentalization of who you are, it adds to mental illness. It contributes to mental illness. I then started to see dear friends get sick and die from AIDS, some of them in a matter of months. A former roommate of mine in Washington, D.C. got sick and died in less than 4 months. And his parents, who I had met and who consider themselves good Irish Catholics, abandoned their son as he was dying of AIDS. This was in the late 80s. And that's something that I can never forget. And I'm sure that they have so many regrets. I don't know if they're still alive, but I can only imagine the regrets that family has. But these are the things that were happening around me. When my parents finally figured out that their, successful, good-looking son, as they would say, hadn't found the right girl, and they figured out I was gay. I didn't tell them, but they figured it out. They tried to enroll me in Exodus. And I don't know if you know what Exodus is, but it was a thriving nonprofit that supposedly helped individuals become straight. And we all know that conversion therapy is still happening in this country. I made it very clear to them that no, I was not planning to try to convert myself. I had already tried that and it had failed. In 1994, after I had enjoyed an incredible career at Oracle, where I ended up as a senior VP and managing director of their East Asia division, running a team of literally thousands of people and with an annual revenue number of hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, I was recruited aggressively by another company. And after a couple of years, I was doing great. They had promoted me on several occasions. I got an email from the CEO, and he said that at the next company meeting, I should, and I'm not going to say exactly what's on the email, but that I should perform a male gay sex act in front of the thousands of employees that came to these company meetings. I got fired 2 days later. It was right before I would have vested stock worth millions of dollars. I went to the top employment lawyer in San Francisco. I told him my story, and he said, "Rick, do you want to keep working?" And I said, "Of course I want to keep working." He said, "You're going to do nothing." He said, "I will handle the settlement for you, but you are going to do nothing." And we all know this still happens to women, people of color, LGBTQ community members, each and every day around the world. But when it happens to you, it takes the wind out of your sails. And in the professional world, confidence is so much of what you need to be successful, particularly at an executive level. I had several startups. One was quite successful after that time, partly because I didn't trust these senior executives any longer. And by the way, this individual is still alive. He is one of the billionaires in Silicon Valley. He went to Cornell. I have a nephew who's got a doctorate from Cornell, and I have a niece who graduated with honors in computer science and electrical engineering. So, these things don't get forgotten. And I've let some folks at Cornell know, just what happened. And I don't name the individual, but these stories need to be told. I then found myself recruited by Google when I was 49 years old. And I was all excited because it was a job I had done successfully at several companies. And after interviewing with 13 different executives and taking an IQ test, they hired another guy who was 34 and had just come out of a Harvard MBA program. And then I realized, okay, now I'm dealing with ageism. So all these things happened in my life, and they're trauma. But I did my best to get by, and I continued to live what others would consider to be a successful life until the spring of 2021. I was dealing with the fact that my husband got COVID. This was before the vaccines were available. And I was self-employed, and I was in a covered California plan with Kaiser. And I went to Kaiser to get tested, and they said, "Mr. Hess, you don't have insurance." And because of a snafu, they had dropped my insurance, even though I was continuing to pay every month. In addition, my dear brother, Ken, my oldest brother, who lived in New York all of his adult life, developed ALS and died in May of 2021. And my brother Ken and I had developed just the closest bond, and we talked almost every day when he was still able to talk before the ALS disease had taken away his abilities to function. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I began to develop a very severe case of both MDD, which is major depressive disorder, coupled with GAD, which is a general anxiety disorder. And it got bad. I ended up with this very serious breathing problem, which is a fairly common anxiety symptom where you don't feel like you can breathe. And it just creates so much anxiety about, wow, I'm not going to be able to continue to live. I wasn't sleeping. I became incredibly tired and anxious from a lack of sleep. I lost 50 pounds. Again, not an unusual symptom of major anxiety and depression. I became nauseous. I just couldn't eat. And those of you that know me know that I'm a good eater. And then you begin to have problems with basic bodily functions. My blood pressure had dropped dramatically. And I was, having trouble just going to the bathroom, number one and number two, and it becomes very scary. The pain began to become unbearable. I cannot adequately describe the pain that you're in when your brain loses rationality and you just don't want to live. But it is the worst pain that I think anybody can experience. You just want to die. And you don't understand how you got there, but you just don't believe that you can go on. You believe that you're a failure. You believe that you have failed those around you that you love and that love you. And you begin to believe that it would be better for them if you die. I really truly thought that ending my life would make it easier for my wonderful husband to get through. And by the way, I forgot to mention that I've also been very fortunate in love. I met a wonderful man 15 and a half years ago, Gonzalo, who I've been with and married to for 8 years. But I just didn't want him to have to deal with this husband who was older than him and that was so sick. That lack of sleep and that irrational thinking is what drives people to suicide. And while I don't want to get into details, I did make an attempt on my life here in my property. My husband was gone. And he came home and I had some injuries and I lied to him and I told him that I had just fallen. About 2 weeks later, I had ended up in the Kaiser psych ward. Kaiser Permanente was my provider at the time. And the day after I got out, I drove our Tesla to the Golden Gate Bridge, and my husband was gone, and I walked halfway out the bridge and just stared down and thought, what a graceful way to go. My husband found my location on the Tesla app. For those of you who are familiar with some of the new mobility apps, you can see where the car is. He knew that I shouldn't be at the bridge. He called 911 and then he called me. He was crying. And again, I lied to him and I told him, oh, Gonzalo, it's a beautiful autumn day. I'm out taking a walk. He knew that wasn't true. That call saved my life. I got back home and I started to think to myself two things. I had a therapist say to me, Rick, if you end your life, your husband is going to wake up each and every day with regrets and asking himself, what could have I done differently? I didn't want him to go through that. And my dear cousin Sue came out from Virginia for 2 weeks. My condition had become treatment resistant. I was taking ECT treatments, which some of you know are electric shock therapy treatments. And she kept saying, Rick, you can get through this. People get through this. The good news is I ended up on a medicine called Effexor. Effexor seemed to save my life. It took a few months, but I started sleeping. I started eating, I started exercising, and I really and truly felt like I was living again until I ended up in my first manic episode. I had been diagnosed as bipolar. It was based on a prescription medicine. And for those of you who have dealt with a manic episode or a bipolar condition, again, you know that this is out of your control. You end up, you don't need to sleep. You think you're the smartest person in the world. You become grandiose. You start calling everybody you know. You start getting angry. I ended up driving on the 101 at 120 miles an hour one night. I'm lucky I didn't kill myself or somebody else. I also ended up getting thrown off of an airplane in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, by the flight attendants who didn't believe that I was a safe passenger. Again, my dear husband didn't know what was going on, but fortunately, he's got a mother who's a psychologist in Argentina, and he had had his own therapy. And my cousin understood on the phone that I was in a manic episode, and I ended up switching carriers and ended up at the Marin Health, which is a UCSF facility, University of California, San Francisco. And again, they saved my life. And I know that my time here is drawing to a close. And so I just want to tell you the tools that I have deployed to get back to recovery and stability and back to functioning as I did in the past. You can get through these illnesses. Your family members can get through these illnesses, and you can be quote unquote normal. And the I call them my five stools, five legs of my stool. And they're as follows. Family is key. And again, my heart goes out to people that we all know who don't have close family to help them get through these illnesses. Close friends are key. Another one of my dear friends who lives in Santa Barbara came up and spent time with me on several occasions. And she's the one who said, get out of Kaiser Permanente, get into either UCSF or Stanford. She was absolutely right, by the way. And I'm sorry if anyone from Kaiser is on the call, but Kaiser failed me. In addition, talk therapy, we know, works. And again, I know I have white privilege and I have good health care that I can afford. And I've been able to see a talk therapist. I paid for it out of pocket when I was with Kaiser at UCSF. It's actually included in my care. But I have seen a one-on-one therapist now for quite a while. And in addition, I'm in group therapy, some clinician-led and some peer-to-peer. And those sessions help me figure out what's been happening to me, why I got ill, and how I can recover. Medicines are very important. Again, my nephew in Princeton, Virginia, Princeton, New Jersey, has been involved in psych meds, and he and I talk about the chemistry. And I am currently on a cocktail of meds, stabilizers, mood enhancers that have me feeling good. For me, exercise has absolutely been key. And we all know the benefits of exercise, but just getting out, getting fresh air, getting your heart rate up, not letting yourself get too overweight, although, these psych meds do affect weight, many of them. And I have gained quite a bit of weight, I think, partly because of one of the psych meds. And then last but not least, we all need a purpose. And, here in the Bay Area, where you have some of the best educated people in the world and some of the most successful people in the world, there's this thing that we all want to get rich quick and retire young so we can travel the world. And I was living that dream. It turns out you need to keep working on a purpose. You need a community. And if you don't have those things, you can have an existential crisis, which is something that I've gone through. What's the meaning here? So those are tools that I have used, and I am, just so happy that I have gotten to know the NAMI organization. Very excited about the SPAR Center work that they're doing, the intersectionality of mental illness and being gay is something that I'm really working on. And sadly, for those of you that saw my email, I did some research over the last few days about suicide, and the numbers are staggering. Every year in this country, 25,000 people commit suicide. For 25,000 deaths, there are 1,250,000 attempts every year. And what's not out there is those attempts often seriously destroy people's lives. I actually thought about overdosing on sleep meds. Well, it turns out people do that and survive, but the meds end up eating out their GI tract and seriously damaging organs. The sad reality, too, is that while there are no specific numbers on LGBTQ plus suicide rates, there is evidence to indicate that probably 20% of Americans that die from suicide identify as LGBTQ. That's a staggering statistic, and it's something that I'm hoping for the rest of my life I can work on. So that's my presentation, and I want to thank you all for listening. I want to thank you all for the help that you have provided to me through this journey. As my dear cousin Sue says, mental illness is like the last frontier in medicine. It's still a big mystery. People don't understand why this happens or how it happens, but we all know it does happen. And we all need to work on helping people not just get help and have hope, but to recover. I think that was my buzzer. And with that, I'll presentation over.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, Rick. And I really love that concept of the legs of your stool. It really helps to solidify all those different pillars that really do build the support system. So thank you so much. And we are going to share some more resources towards the end of this presentation. So I'm going to hold off on that for now. But we do have some excellent resources to share. But speaking of sharing, it's also really important that we share hope. And so keeping this thread of hope going, I want to introduce our next speaker, who has also been touched by suicide. Kate Ruley. Am I pronouncing that right?
Ruley.
Okay, great. Yeah. Kate Ruley is a wife, mother, child suicide loss survivor, activist, advocate, and mixed media artist. A woman who wears many hats. And she is a member of the Suicide Prevention Collaborative in Marin County, as well as a Felton Loss team, and Loss standing for Local Outreach to Suicide Loss Survivors. And Kate finds hope in supporting youth's mental health throughout Marin County. She supports youth in finding and navigating free services and resources for mental health care, substance use awareness, and crisis and suicide prevention support. Her story is one of love and loss, a grief journey that led to healing through advocacy. And Kate shares her story today and in other times in the hope that it will spare others the pain that her family has had to endure. So without further ado, I give you Kate Ruley.
Thank you, Amanda. Before I get started, I'd like to share how Rick and I had met at the NAMI walk a year ago. And I just remember thinking, that he was just the greatest. And he said, I really want to get involved. And I thought, wow, maybe we can work together and everything. And then I didn't see him until he joined the NAMI board and the storytelling series. So here we are doing this together, which I just think is so amazing. That's how things come together sometimes when they're meant to be. We're meant to work together. So
Feeling is very mutual.
and the kitties decided to visit, so this one's going to be in my lap, and I'm going to be kind of fidgeting around with her so she doesn't snag my beautiful shawl here. I have to show you. I'm wearing the shawl. Anyway, so if I'm squirming around, you'll know why. So anyway, the song choice was really powerful. Had such a powerful message, I feel. And the story about the American comic just really, it hit me, that it was someone who probably knew quite well here in Marin. So the message, don't give up, in the video, and how they're on the turntable and they're hugging. If you haven't seen the video, please watch that. I want to go to gallery so I don't want to just look at myself. I want to look at all your faces. There we go. Okay. Sorry about my hand, but it was just me and I don't want to just look at me. So anyway, it's beautiful. And I really suggest that everyone watch the video and listen to the lyrics. It's very powerful. So, and the song, it just shows that just a song, something as simple as a song, can help someone continue on for another day. And, we all can share messages of hope in our everyday lives, how we show up for ourselves, how we show up for others, even just being kind to ourselves, and not holding ourselves accountable for things we didn't know about. Like with my son, I have, of course, so many regrets, but I really am showing myself grace and setting an example to other parents and loved ones that we're not responsible for our loved ones' choices, and to be kind to ourselves. And I think that maybe gives them hope to know that, that they don't have to feel responsible. They can accept that their loved one made that choice. And so when we're out and about, in our everyday lives, just a smile, a warm word or a kind gesture, to others is so meaningful. And especially to someone who's struggling, who may be struggling with mental health issues. It could be a stranger, it could be someone you just see, on the side of the road or something. And, just reaching out and showing care can really make a difference. Someone who's alone and in pain. I'm so sorry. I'm afraid this is going to happen. Dang it. Just the vet is trying to call me. I forgot to turn my ringer off. Dang it. So sorry. Anyway, so back to hope. And well, first of all, I think I should probably talk a little bit about Warren. So Warren, as a baby, he was a beautiful baby and perfect in every way, but he was fussy and he was hard to settle down. And he was high sensitivity and high intensity. So he felt things really deeply, and he didn't like to be around a lot of noise or big crowds or things like that. And he was slow to transition. If we were to go from one activity to another or something, he needed time to transition. But he was just really happy kid, otherwise, except for, being a little temperamental, maybe sometimes he just was really happy and playful and fun and bouncy. And one of my favorite memories is just of him jumping on furniture. Like as a parent, you're always telling them, don't jump on the furniture, But now when I think about him jumping on the furniture and just how much joy that gave him, and just I can see him like in my mind's eye, and that just gives me so much joy. So that's how I like to think of him. And he had a really good childhood. He had a wonderful childhood. He was very active. He played sports. He loved video games. He loved his pets. He just loved Tahoe and being in nature and all of that. And but he was an introvert, and there were times when he would just sort of go off by himself, which was just something that he did. That was just his personality, and how he needed to recharge. And as a person who is extrovert, I didn't really understand like why he did that. But I had to learn to respect that sometimes he just needed me to leave him alone and not be constantly asking him questions and nagging him or whatever. But so over the years, he did become addicted to video games, and I really feel like that is one of the a direct cause to his not having social emotional skills. He was not able to share his thoughts and feelings. And I think that's true of a lot of boys, and I think that video games really have a lot to do with that. So we realized too late that he was addicted, and we really tried to wean him off or limit his screen time. I got a safe. I locked up his screen in the safe, and I just tried to limit. But then he, as anyone does when they're addicted to something, he would get angry and whatnot. And he was also super smart. He had a genius IQ, so somehow he figured out how to pick that lock, and he would get it out. Anyway, so but over time he began to be more and more introverted, more and more isolating. He was isolating more and more, and his high school year, his freshman high school year, when he started at Novato High School, he just seemed different. And I remember one of his friends saying something about how he just didn't seem like his goofy, playful self. And we thought, well, he's, it's high school, it's intimidating, and, and he's socially awkward and that kind of thing. And, but he was doing great with academics, and he played sports, and he had friends, and he did gaming tournaments. He outwardly, he was doing everything that a person would be doing if they, were invested in life. But looking back now, I realized that he was living his life. He was showing up for things, but he wasn't really living his life. Like he wasn't fully in, like not enthusiastic like he was when he was younger. So he kind of lost that enthusiasm for life, which is something that I see now in retrospect. And a lot of things will come up, now later in life, that I realize, oh, that was probably a sign that we missed, because we did miss the signs. And he was a good kid. He never got in trouble. He didn't smoke, didn't drink, didn't do drugs, none of that. And, you know, so we didn't really worry about him, you know, because of those reasons. And he always showed up. He always went to school. He was completely sleep deprived and had chronic insomnia, but he always got up and went to school, and he just worked so hard, and he just kept showing up until one day he just gave up hope. And on February 8th of 2019, I went to wake him up for school. It was a Friday, and I found him, and he was dead. And he had he'd given up, and he didn't ask for help. He thought he could do it on his own, and he could fix himself. And, you know, I think that's a big mistake that people make, you know, especially young people, thinking that they can just get through it, you know, just do all the things, just keep showing up. And, you know, so yeah, I just wish that, you know, he had known to reach out, that he hadn't given up hope, that we could have helped him, that he would have known to, you know, ask us to reach out. But he suffered in silence. And so now, after my son died, it would have been really easy for me to give up hope, because when something like that happens to you, you think anything can happen. Anything can happen. I have no control, zero control about what happens to me in my life. But, you know, like Greg said, you know, bad things happen. Bad things happen to everyone. And I know a lot of other parents who've lost children, quite a few just to suicide, drug overdose, lots of horrific things are happening to our youth. And, you know, so I know I'm not alone in that, you know, and so instead of just thinking, you know, going into the fear, you know, spiraling and thinking, you know, I have no control and I'm a victim, you know, of circumstance. And, you know, I just decided I was going to use what happened to me to help this, to help stop this from happening, if I could in any way, prepare other people to know the signs of someone like my son who suffers in silence, and to share what I learned, to share my experience, so that I could help save lives. And I got started right away. Like, I hit the ground running. I didn't take any time to really heal. I did therapy, and I, you know, kind of showed up for stuff, but I didn't like really do the work and on myself, which is what, you know, you kind of need to do before you get all in, like I have. But I just did, and I think, you know, that's what got me through, was just showing up and trying to make a difference, and then making these connections with all these people out there in the world doing all these amazing things to help others who were struggling with mental illness and suicidal ideation, or who had attempted. And I met Kara Connors, who's the executive director of the Suicide Prevention Collaborative, early on. She was one of the first people I met. I showed up to a training when she was working for Buckaloo, and suicide prevention, knowing the signs or something. And she's been part of my life like ever since. And I met some really amazing people along the way who, you know, helped write the strategic plan, who implemented the strategic plan, who formed the Suicide Prevention Collaborative. And I'm a founding member of that group, and even sat in on the planning sessions, which was really powerful. And sat in with Kelly Finley, who was the NAMI executive director before Lou, and got to know her. And we we worked together with a pediatrician and school therapist, and we all sat in a circle and we brainstormed about, what we wanted in a strategic plan. So I just feel so good about being able to be a part of all those things that have come together and formed this collaborative, which is such an amazing gift to Marin. So some of the other things that I've really enjoyed doing was supporting the youth and art. I always say this wrong. The mental health art and film showcase that the youth put on, and it's the community action team, which Nancy Vernon runs, and it's such a fun event, and anything that the youth do is so awesome. They're amazing, these student interns, and so it's grown, it's gotten bigger, and we have like not only art and film, but we have poetry, and we have people come and they teach yoga, and then we had a drumming circle, and we joined with Terralinda High School and did it during Wellness Week, which is really, really cool. And we'll probably do that again. And so that's a really fun event that I invite any of you to join. And just the different initiatives the kids have been a part of, like the crisis text line, the caring cards, which are cards that the youth design. They pick artwork from students who've struggled with mental health issues. My daughters, who lost their brother to suicide, have participated. They're both artists, and their artwork has been on the cards and on Marin 9 to 5 website. So it's sort of a family affair now with that, with them joining in that way, which I love. I've really enjoyed that so much. And then I also work with the local outreach to suicide survivors, which is hard work. I call and talk to newly bereaved. Sometimes it's maybe the next day, that we're usually within 24 to 48 hours after they've lost their loved one. And Lisa's also on the team with me. But it's hard, but it's rewarding. And I, really am so grateful that people who, like me, were just the bottom of the world drops out and they're completely shattered and, and tethered is how I felt. They have this service, these resources that are provided to them so that they have what they need to get through the darkest of times and those first days where they, there's so much to do. There's so many things that you need to take care of, so many details and everything. And so that is something that I am really grateful to be a part of. And what else? Just the friendships that I've made. I've met some beautiful people along the way. I've formed some really strong friendships with other angel moms, and we have a group. We call ourselves Angel Moms, and so it's the Angel Moms. And we have a WhatsApp group. There's about 25 of us, and we communicate all the time, share what's going on in our lives. Another one of the moms just lost a second child in the Ukraine war. And so we were able to support her through that. And she previously lost a daughter to heroin overdose. We have another mother who's lost 2 sons to suicide, and many others that have lost their children that are all a part of this group. And so we continue to meet and support each other and welcome new members when people come along. And, parents, not just moms. I also have a friend who is a gay man who adopted a boy, Sebastian, who died by suicide who is someone that I have connected with, because people call and they'll say, I know someone that needs to talk to you. And I'm like, okay, give them my number. So anyway, that's my share. And I'm not sure how much time I took, but I think that's about it. That's about all I need to say today.
Thank you so much, Kate, for sharing. It's just so powerful to hear not only, you know, the that you had to go through, but the hope that you found and the hope that you're continuing to share with our community. And just it's so beautiful. And so I don't know, it's really inspiring to me that like we can have these things happen in our life and these experiences, and we can build a community out of it, and we can find that hope. And it's just so amazing that you are here sharing this with us today, and you as well, Rick. And we thank you so much for being here and sharing your stories. And in addition to that, we all had collected some resources that we wanted to share with this community. And I kind of separated them into prevention and recovery and post-vention and recovery. And I don't know, are you seeing the slide right now that says prevention and recovery, or does it say Kate's story?
Prevention and recovery.
Okay, excellent, great.
And I also kind of just wanted to give a moment to sort of pause. It was pretty powerful information and a lot of emotion and grief. And I wondered if folks had any questions or observations based on what they've been through in their lives.
Yeah, we can switch up the order and do a little, take some time for question and answer. We've seen lots of really wonderful comments in the chat, and there's just so much gratitude for the both of you sharing.
Let's see. Am I off of mute?
Yeah,
Yep, we can hear you.
I just wanted to thank you both. Both of you so powerful, and I'm so sorry, obviously, for the pain you've endured, but grateful that you're courageous enough to share so we all can learn about more about mental illness. Kate, I wanted to see if you could talk a little bit about connecting the dots after your son's passage with the school. And I was actually sharing with a friend of mine today who's a professor at USC that, you know, when she has concerns about somebody in her class, she's limited into what she can share, but sometimes making those connections to family or other administrators can be life-saving. So I just thought that would be a good thing for you to share.
Yeah, thanks for the question. That's a really good one. I'm just taking a screenshot of the comments. You know, I have a chance to read them, and they're so nice. Thank you for those, everyone. Okay, so can you ask me the question again, just so it's fresh in my head?
Yeah, no problem. Just if you could share what you learned about Warren's experience at school after he passed. And I know that you had said before that you wished that you'd had communication with the school beforehand to kind of put two and two together about him.
Right. So sort of piecing things together. Yeah. So what happens after you lose a loved one like that, and at least I'm sure you know, I did, and I'm not sure if this is true for you or not, but I think it's true of a lot of people, that you do a life review, like when you die, right? And so what I did was I started going back and just like digging like through, like almost like some kind of like excavation kind of thing, like digging for clues, you know, and trying to find answers. So a lot of things, you know, started coming up, and over time, and even today, things will come up and I'll go, oh my God, wow, So when he started losing enthusiasm, it was like a light went out, and he just wasn't the same. He was so quiet all of a sudden, but it had been happening. It was gradual over time. And then I thought that's when the depression hit, and like, it was like his spirit was crushed. And I was thinking, what crushed his spirit? Like, did I do something? Did I say something? Like, did I make him feel bad about himself? And, I'm like digging for all these, things, like remembering things I said. And oh my God, I can't believe I said that to him. And what was I thinking? And you kind of spiral and you just, get into all that self-blame. But I realized that it was the depression that crushed his spirit. It wasn't me. It wasn't any person. It was, any number of different things that were going on in his life. The social isolation, the awkward, social anxiety, right? Just awkward, awkward boy, not being able to really talk to girls, and that was really frustrating. But so one of I probably shared this story, you probably heard it before. One of the people at the school, actually the one and only person at the school who really noticed that anything was going on, besides his friends who said that he wasn't really talking to them that much. Him and another boy had been really close friends, and he was kind of shutting out his friends, like his friends group that he grew up with. And I think that's kind of a common thing for them to switch friend groups, because like their friends like know them so well, and like they'll be able to tell something's wrong or different about them. So we kind of switched friend groups, and he wasn't like as friendly. And this one boy, he said to me, I don't understand, I just want to hang out anymore. And it was just so sad and so hurtful to him. But the one adult that worked at the school was the librarian who noticed Warren isolating at school. No one ever told me what was going on. And when I showed up at the school, because I was there all the time after he died, I helped get the wellness center up and running. And I was just there all the time, and they couldn't get rid of me. But she said, Kate, now that I know what I know, I would have reached out to him, because he was on my radar, because he would come into the library every day at lunch, and he would sit in there by himself and do his homework. He didn't hang out with his friends anymore. And he was isolating at school, which I didn't know. No one told me, And so he's isolating at home, isolating at school. And that would have been like a big red flag for me if I had known that. So she said that he wasn't making eye contact with her. And that's a big one. Like when they stop making eye contact, something's up, And so he wasn't making eye contact with us at home as much. And he was like, he never cried. He wasn't depressed, but he was irritable. He was irritable. And that's a sign of depression, which I didn't know. Again, I didn't know that. I thought, he's a moody teenager, right? I mean, that's what we thought. And he's sleep deprived. He had serious sleep issues, chronic insomnia. So yeah, he's grumpy. Yeah, I get that. He's a senior in high school. It's hard. It's hard to be a 17-year-old boy, So yeah, so the lack of eye contact, and then also like one of the signs of suicide that I think a lot of people don't realize is any change in behavior. And for Warren, and this is something I always say, because the big one for us was he all of a sudden seemed better. Like he was making eye contact. He was being thankful. He was appreciative, and I'm like, wow, like he's doing better. 2 weeks later, he was dead. So he made up his mind, he thought he had, and supposedly it's like there's this feeling of, it's a sense of relief. Like, I'm not going to have to deal with this pain anymore, because now I know what I'm going to do. It was like, I'm opting out. That's what it's like. I'm going to opt out, and these other boys opted out too. Before he died, 17 months prior to his death, 3 other boys who were all high school seniors opted out. They were all from different high schools, and they died within a 2-week period of each other.
Wow.
So suicide cluster.
Mhm.
And so 17 months later, my son was like, they did it, it's an option. So, I don't want our kids to think it's an option, and that's why I work with youth, and that's why I just keep trying to get in there any way I can. And it's hard to get into the schools, it really is, and it's not easy to work within the school districts. I went with Michael Pritchard, and he was asked by the superintendent of schools to show up and talk to the kids, and that's a whole nother story. And I tagged along, and any chance I can get in there and talk to these kids, because I love teenagers. I know it's kind of weird because they're kind of difficult, but I just get them. I mean, I had a really hard time as a teen as well. So anyway, that was a really long answer to what. I'm sorry for taking up so much time. I just got caught up.
No, thank you for sharing that.
Questions for Vic, maybe? Are we out of time? No.
We've got
15
more time. Yeah. So if anyone other questions are out there, feel free to just unmute yourself and ask.
Well, I'll just chime in and say something Kate shared with me that you didn't bring out tonight, which is fine. Everything's great. You had talked about how after the first responders came and left with your son, that they didn't really attend to you and your family. And that after it, I think you had said it was a couple of days, you took your whole family and went into the emergency room. How did you even know to do that? You know what I mean? Like, that was an amazing story. And then I know that since then you've gotten involved and helped form the team that responds. What is it called? Loss team?
Yeah, the Loss team. Yeah, local outreach to suicide survivors. It's funny because everyone asks me that question when I share that.
Yeah, that was so definitive and like a strong thing to do.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. I mean, maybe that was like divine guidance or something, because I somehow just knew that's what we needed to do. And it was the day after. So I found him in our home, and I had to get out of here. And his twin sister also found her brother that morning and with me. And we needed to get out of the house. So for 4 days, we checked in Marin across the highway. And then I thought, we're in shock. Like, we need to go to the hospital. Yep. We need to be treated for shock. And so I took my family in, all of us, we went in and we got treated for shock.
And it's amazing.
And they, took care of us. And I asked if there was a therapist or a psychologist on call, and they called someone. It took him 3 hours to get there, but he came for us, and he showed up, and he talked to each one of us individually, and then as family. And it turns out that he's like the head of the department for Petaluma. He is the trauma lead. Like, he does the groups, all the groups, the trauma groups, grief and trauma, and he's like the guy. And then he ended up hitting it off with my husband, and then became my husband's therapist.
Oh, wow.
And I've worked with him recently. I decided I was gonna see him for a while because he's just been a part of our family since the beginning, and really, really helped us get through that really awful first couple days that we, when they gave us some sleep medication, all the girls, well, Glenn didn't need it, but the girls took trazodone to help us sleep. But yeah, we were treated for shock. And so it's like the best thing that I could have done, you know, and I'm really grateful that somehow I had the wherewithal to do that for my family. So I lost my little pin. Did anyone see my little suicide prevention pin I was wearing? I kept going.
Oh,
"See my-" Now it's gone. Anyway, I'm not gonna dig around on the floor for it. But, so
Which hospital was that, Kate?
that was Kaiser, Novato. Yeah, they were great. Actually, they were really great. But kind of a weird thing happened when I called. I think the person who answers the phone, that's like the intake person, had stepped away. And I think one of the security guards or someone picked up the phone, answered the phone. And when I asked if there was a psychologist or a therapist that was available there, he said, no, we don't have them. We don't have them here. And I could have just believed him. And then I thought, no, that's not true. There has to be. And then I called back again. And thank God I did. And then the woman was like, absolutely, of course, get in here now, get in here right now. I'm like, God, you know. And then I saw that security guy, and he was giving me a hard time about smoking a cigarette outside. And because I recognized his voice, I wasn't even in the entry. I'm like smoking a cigarette around the corner of the building. He starts getting on me about that. I'm like, listen, buddy, you're the one that told me there's no psychologist here, and this just happened, and I'm going to smoke a cigarette wherever the hell I want to. I'm going to smoke a cigarette right here. Just back off, buddy. So yeah. But yeah, I'm really glad I didn't listen to the guy.
Yeah. Good job. Good job.
Speaking of hospitals, one of the issues that I've thought a lot about looking back on my crises is that, if you're leading your life and you know very little about mental illness, and you start to get sick, the only place you know to turn to is your healthcare provider. Mm-hmm. And so you end up, in my case, I ended up at the Kaiser emergency room the first time, and they do triage. Mm-hmm. And you either are 5150'd, which is, as most of you know, an involuntary hold for 3 days, or you're told to go home. And so, after that happened to me, it was like, oh, I'm not going to get any help from my healthcare provider. Mm-hmm. And then the second time I went, I ended up in a 5150 hold, and frankly, it was a very bad experience. Part of it was just how sick I was, but what I really and truly believe is that all these other resources that NAMI has collected, and the SPAR Center has some resources for LGBTQ as well. You really need that in combination with your provider. You need a team. You can't just rely on your psychiatrist or your psychologist or your talk therapist. It takes a village, as they say.
And speaking of a village, I wanted to invite one of our lead volunteers, Jack, to maybe share the number of the helpline and talk a little bit about what the helpline does. And I want to invite, I'm a little concerned because there are a few of you that are not on camera and not sharing. And so I just wanted to remind folks, again, there are actions you can take and get support if you need it. And Jack will tell you who to reach out to a little bit.
Okay, I can do that. The helpline is the number for I can give you the number, but it's on the homepage of namimarin.org. So if you just go to namimarin.org, the helpline number is there. It's 415-444-0480. And it's a bunch of volunteers. We're all family members, not suicide survivors, but family members of people who have or have had serious mental illness. And so they're not professionals, but we know a lot. And there's also a resource guide that I've been putting together I've been volunteering for a long time. And there's a section in the resource guide, the loss team is in there, and you can access the resource guide directly, but it's easier just to call the helpline and have somebody do that for you. Usually we'll call you back right away.
And sometimes it's just nice to have someone to talk to like that. And some of the family members have had losses in their lives. So yeah, I just encourage you to reach out if you need support.
Yeah, I should say that the majority of our the callers are family members. We're sort of concentrated or focused on family members. But we have had calls from people who are in crisis themselves, and we often people just want to talk to anybody. They just want to talk to somebody, and we're kind of available for calls all during the week, 24/7. People, since COVID, we don't answer the phone directly, but you can leave a message and somebody will get back to you very quickly.
Thank you, Jack, for sharing that. I do have some resources that I do want to share with you all, but you know what I'm going to do is put them into a beautiful follow-up email for anyone that attended, which is because it would take up some time, some precious time, if I wanted to go through all of them right now, because we have a good list of resources to share with you all today. So look out for an email from Amanda at NAMI Marin. And in that email, I'd also ask that you complete a survey on our storytelling series. I'll put a link in there. But the other thing that we did want to mention during this event was that we have our NAMI walk coming up in just about 1 week. And it's where Rick and Kate met serendipitously without even knowing each other's stories. It's a place that we all come together and build more community around mental illness, and we find hope with each other. And also it is where we raise money to provide mental health for all. So if you are available that day, come out, and I'll include a link to that as well in the email.
I'll be there.
And that's where I met Kate last year too. And that's Saturday, October 7th. So not this coming weekend, but the weekend after. And you can find out details also on our website. But any other questions or anything anyone wants to share? Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'd just like to say thank you to Rick for his brave share today. I believe it's the first time you've shared some of the things that you did, and I know it's hard stuff, and you did amazing, and you even shared some things that I didn't know. So very, very proud of you for showing up today and being so brave. And I want to thank Lou for creating this Speakers Bureau and for inviting me back again, and really appreciate this opportunity so much, and really enjoy working with you all. And Amanda, you rock, and thank you so much for putting together this amazing presentation. So, and thanks all who came and who showed up for us today, and I hope to see you all again. And
Hey, can I say one more thing? Besides saying Amanda did the heavy lifting for all of this, she's kind of leading our storytelling right now. But I wanted to introduce Katrina Redahan, who is our newest staff person. For anyone who hasn't met her yet, she just came on board, and help is on the way, I keep saying, because she's going to help us support all of our program work and also some of our fundraising. So super excited to have Katrina on board.
Hey,
Well,
everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you, Rick. I didn't get to thank you as well. Thank you.
Thank
And
you
reach
all.
out for a lunch date soon. Have a good night.
Yeah, thank you all for coming, and thank you especially to Kate and Rick for being so brave to share your stories with us. So really appreciate it.
Bravo.
All
Bye.
right.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.